What's going on, guys? It's EA Green. You guys have been watching our videos for the last couple of weeks, and we wanted to do something a little different today. We think that you can get value in all ways, shapes, and forms, especially through more direct learning type of content. But we think you can gain a ton of knowledge and a ton of experience and a ton of insight by having these conversational stories between our clients and ourselves. So we have Lauren Miller of LR Miller & Co. Right? She's one of our earlier clients. We did some podcasting and some other content with her, and we think that she has a ton to offer. So we hope you enjoy. Welcome to another episode of Open Up Shop, the podcast. I'm your host, EA Green, and we're here to navigate the ups and downs of entrepreneurship and to conquer these obstacles by just getting started. Yes, I am back. This wasn't a fluke. I'm back again. I know you guys haven't heard from me in a long time, so get used to it. I'm back for good. And put a little asterisk behind there, right? But with this episode, coming back now with the podcast, I want to kind of look at it in terms of like the balance of it all. When I started this out, I was working my 9 to 5, and then I was working what I called this my 7 to 2, and it was hard. And we got to a part where I then finally was able to go out on my own since October of 2019. And as things were going on, I had to find a person who I believe that would just understand the balancing act of this perfectly. So the person I brought here today is none other than but the Lauren Miller of Lauren R. Miller & Co. and Miller 3 Consulting. What's going on?
What's up? I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate, literally you probably could have been anywhere in the world.
This is true, but I'm right here with you.
You're here with us, right?
Yes.
Here, right? So, what's going on? How you doing?
I'm fresh off of being out of the country for 10 days, here for 2 days. I haven't been home in 2 weeks. But that's the grind. That's the lifestyle that I live. Okay.
So for the listeners, and I try to give you the best intro that I could, but for those who didn't catch it, for those in the back, can you just let them know a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So I am a 5th generation entrepreneur, a 2nd generation business owner. I am in the process of continuing my father's legacy while building mine. And so what that looks like is managing in a business that I inherited after his passing in 2018, while also continuing to build my business as well. So like you mentioned, that balancing act is I'm steady on the surfboard all the time.
Right. So I wanted you guys to understand the context here, that she is so good at this balancing act that she can make it sound so simple. And she put it in 2 sentences, but after we start getting into like what she really does on a regular basis, you're gonna see like, oh, okay, now I see why she's here. But before we really kind of get into it, Lauren, can you let the listeners know like what gets you started? Like what kind of like gets you going? What kind of gets you moving? This can be, anything that you might, that might drive you to just to keep pushing.
I think a few things. So one is, I've been very blessed to, I think, be in alignment with my purpose. And I feel like if God blesses you with the knowledge of what your purpose is, that should get your ass up out of bed, because there's so many people that want to know why they're here. Right. So that's one thing. Secondly, I feel like what I have been called to do is greater than myself and greater than my lifetime. And so we'll dive deep into this a little bit later, but I am continuing on a 150-year legacy. And so it's like, I got shit to do. Right. You know what I mean? And to whom much is given, much is required. And so, because of my background, there's a lot of privilege there. So it's like, how dare I be on some lazy ass shit? You know what I mean? Like, so that's really what it is. And I think, to kind of sum it up, my biggest fear is not living up to the potential that God blessed me with. So those 3 things are really was like, get your ass up, do what you need to do. It may not be the best day, but it's another day, and you here, and God got you here. So, that's really what keeps me motivated.
Right. Listen, Lauren is not going to hold back any punches, right? She's going to make sure that that you get this eloquent, sophisticated understanding, and then she's not going to hold back anything, right? So I'm just super stoked that you're here. It's been a long time coming to get you in town. So let's kind of really set up the background here, right? Mm-hmm. And essentially kind of walk me through in terms a little bit more about the last 5 years or so that kind of brings you up to this point of why you're here today, right?
Yeah. So I launched my first business and brand in 2013. I quit my job.
And that was called?
Can't Stay Put.
Gotcha.
And so essentially what that was a lifestyle and travel brand that I created targeting Black millennials and inspiring global thought and global perspective. I did and so from that, I influenced and impacted thousands of people around the world through public speaking, coaching, developing international offerings, doing a lot of consulting work internationally, the whole gamut. And so from about 2013 up until about, I would say 15, that was my main focus.
Right.
And then,
so during that, Can't Stay Put, the first thing that comes to mind is clearly travel.
Right.
Right. So do you have a book that you kind of have to the side to show all the stamps that you got? Did you get your passport replaced because there's so many, all your pages are full?
I will say that, I got my first passport before I was 16. Mm-hmm. So I started flying by myself at 5 years old. So me, launching and starting Can't Stay Put wasn't because I saw a lifestyle that somebody had. I was branding a lifestyle that I always had.
Right.
And so it was okay, this is something that's very specific to who you are. I'm not out here trying to, make people feel less than or shit on people or anything like that. But it was Lauren, you have been exposed to a certain level of fearlessness since you were a little girl.
Right.
I've been able to navigate an airport since I was 5. You know what I mean? I remember when people could still come to the gate to get you and drop you off. Right. And so when I got to a space when, I call it my quarter life crisis 25, I was just I'm not doing what God put me on earth to do. I need more purpose. And so was on some eat, pray, love shit. And, God revealed to me Lauren, this is something that's very unique to who you are. How do you use this privilege to help other people? Mm-hmm. And that has kind of been the basis of all of what I've done, is using my privilege to help people that look like me. And so with Can't Stay Put, it was okay, let me be the people's eyes and ears and go out into the world, because there may be barriers or fears that people may have going out into the world. And so because it was something that was second nature, it was okay, this is something I can really do. And so I built this platform and kind of really became professionally myself.
Right.
If that makes sense. I was myself for a living. So yeah. It's a big difference between you got paid to be yourself than paid to just be famous. Exactly.
Thing, right? Exactly. You took something that you actually enjoyed doing, that you essentially became an expert at.
Exactly.
And you were able to monetize it, right?
Exactly.
So it didn't really probably feel like work. I know that sounds so cliche.
Definitely didn't feel like work. And I would say my title that I created myself, I call myself an inspirational explorer. Okay. And so I never considered myself a travel blogger or anything like that. It was really I am using travel as a conduit to inspire people to create their own Can't Stay Put lifestyle, whatever that means to them. Travel was what was specific to me. Photography could be what's specific to you, drawing, whatever it is, but using what's specific to you to create the life that you want. Don't stay put.
Right.
And so that was the gospel that I was spreading. And of course, travel is always inspirational, aspirational. So that's the heightenedness. But, me giving speeches in India, Soweto, Chile, you know what I mean? Right. Me speaking to kids, being in the hoods and stuff is really talking about how you use who you are to kind of take you wherever it is that you want to go in life. So yeah, that's what I was on, and that's what I did. Up until 2017, but the balancing act that I know we're going to get deep into kind of started in 2015.
Right. Okay. So So now, like, listen, it's like, I know you guys are kind of following this, right? So from 2013, right, to, when Lauren said she had her quarter life crisis, and to be honest, I didn't think it existed, but I kind of had one too. Like you were like, you get to 25, and you're like, I need to stop playing.
Right. Yeah. For some people, it happens at 30, 35, 40. I just know for me, it was just like, I need to be on the path that I'm supposed to be on. I don't care if I'm not rich tomorrow, but 17 years from now, I know if I'm in alignment, I'm gonna get there, and I need to start getting into alignment.
No, I understand that. That's a word right there. So, you spend like the early years of your, your professional career on the go, right? And you were probably spend more time in the air than you did on the ground in one particular place. But you were saying that like at a certain time, you kind of got grounded, right? Something came to a screeching halt. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So in late 2014, early 2015, my father was diagnosed with a severe lung disease. And so at the time, we didn't really know what that really meant. We didn't know what the disease was. And, it was kind of like a call to action to me, like, Lauren, I need you to help me with this situation. I need for you to help me secure my legacy, and help me with succession plan and getting you and your siblings ready for my departure, because unfortunately his disease was terminal. And so at the time we didn't really know, the time period that we had, but by me making that commitment, his life was extended for 4 years. Right. You know what I mean? Where there were moments where it could have been the same year, but we were working up against the clock, because it was like, we have this legacy to secure. And so at the time, I think I was like 25, 26. No, I was like 26, 27. And so, this is at the height of me building my brand, my platform. I'm excited. Like, I'm like a pioneer in this Black millennial travel movement. And then it's like, wait a minute, why, God? Like, why would this be happening right now? Right. At the height of, what I'm trying to do. And, I'm not, I wasn't settled. I wasn't making millions of dollars. I'm still on the grind trying to build. But life be happening, you know what I mean? And so at the time I thought, getting my dad situated was going to be a 3-month thing, and I was going to go back to doing what I was doing.
So 3 months turned into what?
3 months turned into 4 years. But what I, in hindsight, looking back, is just like, I am so much of a better person because of what I went through. But it took a while to accept it, because I was mad. Right. Because, my father had lived his life, lived a long life. He was 60, he passed when he was 67. So he had lived 60 plus years. Right. And I'm only 26, 27 years into my life, and you telling me that I got to put my stuff on hold for my father. And his illness was a result of life choices that he made. He was a smoker. Right. So it's not even like, so there was a lot internally, right. that I had to,
that you had to work with.
I had to work through and process. Because again, I'm pretty sure you guys know, they say in your 20s, you're looking out for your selfish best interest. Like, this is the time to get to know yourself, what you want to do. And so all of my peers are looking out for their selfish best interest. And here I'm having to be the most selfless I've ever been in my life. Right. And so even beyond just physically being his caregiver, we have a whole legacy that includes a business, a transfer of knowledge, apprenticeship that's there as well. Right. So it's even more than just the physical, taking care of him, the mental space of like, yo, my dad is fucking dying right now. It's like, but we also up against the wall because we got this legacy to secure. Right.
So let me kind of dig into that. Right. So during those 4 years, right, you're, at least from when things got started, when you were helping your dad, right, and taking care of your dad developed a business, right, developed a firm that essentially was around 30 plus years, right, of experience dealing with, consulting, disparity studies, and working with government contracts and stuff. So that is, looking back, 4 years, it's not a long time for you to try to acquire 30 years worth of knowledge. Right. So like at a high level, like what are some of the high level things that you realize that you kind of like came out of that understanding that you didn't know up front?
Well, I think you realize what's truly important, right? So when you say 30 plus years, one of the things that my dad had to tell me, and it hurt my feelings, it was just like, Lauren, you've only been doing your thing for about 3-4 years. I've built this company that's older than you. It would be dumb as hell for you not to work and secure something that has made money time and time and time and time again. I'm not trying to minimize what you've done, right, because a part of you doing that is because I raised you that way.
Right.
But at the same time, those people going to be there. If you really built something from your heart and you've touched people's lives, that's going to be there. And so I need for you right now to understand that he would just tell me, like, it's not going to be too much longer. I promise you it won't be too much longer.
That's a lot to process.
Yeah.
So, walk me through the I don't want to say the emotions behind it, but like, that's heavy.
It took me a long time, because at first I was like, oh, how dare you? Like, I done started this. I done been on around the world and I'm inspiring my peers, like the whole, the selfishness, right? You in your 20s. So it took me a while to realize, right? But being on this side, oh my gosh, I wish I would have gotten in line sooner.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like the understanding of like what's truly important, right? And especially understanding like, legacy. I was, in tune with building legacy, but not as much as I am now, right? And so when you really understand legacy, if you're really in alignment with legacy, then you went in for the long game.
Right.
So these couple years that you're having to do succession planning with your dad and take care of him is really just a chip as it relates to the lifetime of legacy that you're building. And so time became less of a construct. It was just like, I can do that later. It's like, okay, Lauren, you're on a different journey than most of your peers.
Right. So I feel like a way that I kind of look at it is that, and shout out to LB the Poet. So he was someone that I interviewed in the first group of interviews, and he said something to me that really stuck out to me, and I told him I was going to take it. But it's like, you're kind of on a highway, right? When you're on your journey, and essentially, like, when you're on that highway, there's more than one lane, but we all know that they're going in the same direction. So sometimes, like, you might look at it as like, can't stay put might be that one lane. Right. And that's the fast lane, right? You passing everybody, you're doing what you got to do. But, sometimes like something's ahead of you, right? And that roadblock or whatever, like, you might have to pivot. You might have to not say, I'm going to stop, but you might have to say, you know what, let me pull over to the shoulder for a moment, gather my things, and then be like, you know what, let's keep moving. So, so like now that, so your dad is gone, and now essentially there's a business that needs to continue to be ran. Like what is that like? Like, I'm assuming that, you were doing things with the business before his departure.
Yeah. So I would say, the balancing act did not start when he passed. The balancing act had started once I was called to help him live as long as he could so we get his legacy together. So I was still doing Can't Stay Put, still traveling, still managing his caregiving, and also being apprenticeship in his company. So I was juggling way more balls. And so now it's hard, but I have less balls to juggle. Right. And so I started to learn like how to try to kill more than one bird with one stone. You know what I mean? I think now, because he is no longer physically here, there is a lot more responsibility that me and my brother have to take on. Because just want to be transparent, I am the director of business development and my brother is the CEO. So I'm not carrying this baton by myself. But in that, being an entrepreneur through and through is hard.
Right.
It ain't no way around it. Right. It is hard.
I mean, we joke about this, but it's like, yeah, you go from 9 to 5 to working a 9 to whenever I get it done.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that keeps me motivated, because it's funny, because early this morning, somebody had texted me like, yo, you've been out of the country. You went straight to working. Like, you ain't been home yet. And I was like, I saw my dad on his deathbed in the hospital still working. still talking to clients. They didn't know how sick he was. He would send me and my brother because we were like, our CEO doesn't fly anymore. Our CEO doesn't have these meetings anymore. So when you see your father still securing his legacy for his kids until the very end, the hard shit that I be talking about ain't hard.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So like being able to witness a man's last act for his kids is something that I will always have with me. Right. And so when I do get in those moments where I'm, you know, in the valleys or like this shit is too hard, just like, nah.
Right.
Nah.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, I get it, right? Because it's like perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like no two people's journeys are the same,
Right.
Right. So like, what it's hard for one is, you know, it can be easy for another,
right,
and stuff like that. But like when you have that moment, or you kind of like, it's more than an aha moment. It's like it's almost like a oh shit moment,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes those things happen right before you, and if you're not paying attention, you're gonna miss it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can definitely understand that, like seeing that and just understanding the gravity behind it all, like how that would like tune you up, and I'm like, you know, like Noah, like there's nothing that can happen to me that will make me just kind of, I had to be gone for this for me not to want to keep going.
Exactly. Because I think, you know, in that process of securing my father's legacy, there was a transfer of knowledge about the business. There was a transfer of knowledge about who he was as a person. So he historically, of course, always had been my dad,
Right.
but I never really knew him outside of being my dad. Right. And so in that time and space, I got to see the businessman, how he's navigating, how he's negotiating. I remember, and I won't go too deep, but there was an anecdote where we were going after a contract. They asked for our best and final offer. We needed to win the contract because when you're sick as hell in the US, you need money to stay alive.
Right.
Point blank, period. And so we bid on this contract. They asked for a best and final offer. Typically, when people are asking for a best and final offer, they want you to chisel some money off the top. He added money to it.
That's boss right there.
Okay. And this whole time I'm like, Dad, like we need this. Like we we can't be. They took it. They took it.
So did he say why he
was like, because they ain't got nobody else. And I know. And I was just like, you know, I had never seen that level of confidence, right? Because I'm just like, I'm thinking, I see our bank account.
Right.
And I know what we need. And I know we need a whole care team. We need, you know what I mean? Like I need help because there's only so much. And I like, there's, like I said, in order to live with a terminal illness, you have to have an optimal level of healthcare, which costs a lot of money. And so like, I'm just like, yo, we ain't got time to be playing around with this deal. We need to secure it.
Yeah, no gambling.
No gambling. And he gambled and won.
Right.
And I was just like, yo, my dad is that nigga, dog. Like, seriously. You know what I mean? And to this day, like I said, that client never physically saw him. Ever.
And
ever.
And talked him out of his shoes.
Right. You know what I mean? He handling phone calls from the hospital bed.
Right.
So when you see stuff like that, and then piggyback that onto him telling me, like, you know, family history, right? And so I mentioned this a little bit earlier about, you know, coming from a 150-year legacy of ownership and equity. My family legacy is rooted in agriculture and farming. So if you think about it, don't rain every season, right? And so you may get to harvest and not have nothing. And so when you come from a legacy of people that got to have faith that hopefully it's going to rain next year, you know, hopefully we're going to reap what we've sowed. And there may be times where you don't. But that doesn't mean you go out, sell that land or, you know, do whatever. It's like you maintain, you hold strong. And so it's like I have a grandparent, my grandfather, who passed away in 2019, probably been on an airplane once in his life. But he got a granddaughter. Me, I done been around the world back and forth 50 times. He was in the field with 2 mules, no tractor. So when you hear the sacrifices, like you understand your responsibility. So it's like, how dare I be like, I can't wake up early or stay up late. I ain't sick. I'm healthy. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean to kill myself, of course. I'm not.
And you're not doing physical labor.
Right.
Like,
you know what I mean? Like I'm not. Exactly. So it's like, I'm by no means am I saying that I am killing myself. You know what I mean? Like I definitely, you know, the beautiful thing about entrepreneurship is any day is a work day and any day is an off day.
Right. Exactly.
And
they seem to blur though.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely blur. I mean, when I was in Bermuda, my best friend asked me, when was the last day I didn't do like any work, like nothing? And I was just like, what do you mean? Like, cause I sent a text. I mean, that's technically still work, or, I answered a phone call, but it's like every work day is not an 8-hour work day.
Right.
Every work day is not a 2-hour work. There's some days I'm only putting in 30 minutes. Right. There's some days I'm putting in 15 hours. Right. You know what I mean? That's the beauty of entrepreneurship. And that's one of the things that was lessons that has been passed down within my family of like, there's 2 working days after Friday and 2 working days before Monday. Don't be a weekend person. So when your family comes from agriculture, it's like the pigs still got to get fed on Saturday. The cows still got to get tended to on Sunday. You can't stop. You know what I mean? And so it doesn't mean to work yourself to the bone, but you don't look for the weekend. You can't be a weekend person.
Right. Okay.
And so that is something that, like I said, I could take off on a Wednesday and work Saturday and Sunday. It's no difference. Right. Everything fluid.
I understand. All right. Okay. I'm trying to
really
keep us
on.
Yeah,
I got a lot of gems for y'all. You know what I mean? I can take y'all to church real quick, take your church and back.
So just wait before we wrap things up. So kind of like walk me through, because like I like from our conversations, I know that Can't Stay Put isn't going anywhere. Right. Can't Stay Put can't stay still, but it ain't leaving. Right. So if you caught it, you caught it. But then now you're still securing this legacy with with the consulting group. So like walk me through, like, how are you managing that? Like, how are you trying to manage these two things, right? Because it's different when they are aligned, right, and they support each other, but they're in two different like sides, right? So kind of let's walk us through that.
So I think, kind of what I hinted on around like, it makes sense for you to secure a 30+ year business, because what ends up happening being on this side is like, because I did take the time to listen to my dad and we secured the business, I have steady income, right, from the consulting business, which allows me the freedom and the flexibility to build my business.
Gotcha.
That's ultimately what we want, right? Yeah. So it's like, we don't necessarily want to have a 9-to-5, but it's like you still need to maintain a certain type of lifestyle. You got to eat. You know what I mean? And so when I first did quit my job, I didn't have there wasn't extra income. It was just nothing. You know what I mean? And so now I'm just so grateful because I'm like, because it is a family business, I'm not going into no office. I can get the work done. There's no deadline. There's no, you know what I mean? But I'm also have a steady income such that I can invest in building my business and getting off the ground. And so when I look at it from that perspective and also remind myself that, Lauren, you were playing a long game. So you can't really look to your right and you can't look to your left, because a lot of people may have a 5-year plan. They want to get a house, big car, all of those things. And that's not what you want. Right. And that's okay. And so I think for me, in terms of balancing, I will say I'm still learning how to balance. I think it's something that will always be a ongoing thing. I think I will continue to get better at it, right? And I think one of the things that I've learned is when I first started Can't Stay Put, I was doing everything myself. Right. Now I can't. So it's like, all right, that means that you have to be cool with your profit margins being dipped into because you need to hire people. Right. You got to outsource. But it's like, at first it was like, okay, do you want to be an entrepreneur or do you want to build a business in a company? And so after going through the situation, my dad is like, no, I want to build a business in a company. Right. I can't be running around like a chicken with a head cut off.
Trying to do everything.
Right. Not doing that. You know what I mean? I gave you the example of the day. It's like, I'm the engine, but I can't go nowhere without no damn tires. Right. Exactly. No doors. I'm going to sit here and overheat. I'm going to keep on overheating until I build this team. And so with me coming back to my platform, Can't Stay Put is still, I would say, dormant, because after going through the situation with my father, I realized that there were so many other additional opportunities and I needed to showcase who I was outside of solely travel and lifestyle. And I'm pretty sure listeners who are business owners, like, sometimes you only want people to see you for the business that you do, because It's like, I'm branding, staying on brand. This is what you need to. And so I got to the point where it's like, Lauren, you are so much more than Can't Stay Put. You've pigeonholed yourself because you don't want people to kind of deviate from knowing what you are. But now it's just like, nah, you got lessons to teach. You got legacy. You done went through succession planning, and being a Black person within the Black community is like, this is gold.
Right.
What I'm talking about right now needs to be shared. So I launched my parent company, LR Miller & Co., which will be the home of Can't Stay Put and many other business ventures and brands. And so it's not necessarily that Can't Stay Put is gone. There's some restructuring that is happening.
Got it.
You know what I mean? And it's still a balancing act. You know what I mean? But again, once you realize that you want a 50, 75, 100-year plan, it's like, you know, I got time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I think that takes some real talent, some real, perception, right? Like just open-mindedness to think in that perspective, right? Where it's like some, as an entrepreneur, you can only eat what you kill, right? So a lot of times you might be looking like, all right, like there's something nice right there in front of me, but I might be focused on that, and the huge game is now passing me by. All right. So, with that, what I want to do is I want to take a quick break.
Okay.
And then we're going to come back and we're going to wrap things up.
All right. Sounds good.
So we are back, and we are back here with Lauren Miller of LR Miller and Co. Right? I don't know why I keep saying LRM Miller and Co. But so we're back, and we're here with Lauren Miller of LR Miller and Co. And we were kind of talking about securing the bag, right, and kind of securing the legacy from the business that she inherited as a second generation business owner, while still growing her own endeavors. So what I want to do is kind of wrap things up and kind of summarize what we kind of talked about today. I want to give our listeners and viewers some practical advice about like when it comes to securing the bag and growing your own. All right. So we're going to go into our summary segment called Concept Startup Growth, where it's looking at planning, executing, and adapting. All right. So, looking back at what you've been able to accomplish over the last couple of years, when telling someone or looking at how you should plan on doing this, what is some advice that you would give?
So I would say, looking back on the succession planning, all that kind of stuff, I would say that don't allow, and this is specific to my situation, don't allow sickness and death to be the catalyst to do succession planning or to secure a legacy or do the baton passing, because it makes it even more stressful and adds way more layers to it. I think secondly, for me, around the planning is like dealing with my emotions and my feelings quicker. Like I need to, stop being a brat, get in line, because now it's just like, girl, you was being young and you know what I mean, into yourself. And it's so funny because I look back at some of the stuff that I was saying to my dad about business. I'm like, how dare you act like you know more about business than this man that done been here. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that's being young, into yourself.
Tenacity about it, right? Like that's that fire that you don't want to ever lose.
Right. That is true. And I think from a planning, I think for people who are really, business owners and you're looking to build a legacy and, hopefully, pass it on to your kids, I think start to nurture that at a very young age within your kids. And so, I been working for my father since I was a kid. I used to get paid my age as my hourly salary. But at the same time, the intentional,
that's kind of fire.
Yeah. The intentional passing of the baton didn't really start until later on. And so had it probably started a little bit earlier, it probably wouldn't have been as challenging as it was. But again, it's like, of course, in hindsight, everything is 2020. You know what I mean? We didn't do everything perfect, but at the same time, it's something that a lot of people don't ever do. Right. You know what I mean? You talk about succession planning and Black folks, that's not something that is typically in the same sentence.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And the thing is, I'd never heard about the concept or learned about the concept until after my second job. Right. I've already earned my MBA. Right. And it's like, it just, so some of those things like you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
Right. And, you know, there's some disparities there.
Yeah.
Right? And we kind of have an obligation to ask
To
people who, like, when you know, to kind of reach back and kind of say, hey, let's kind of move forward. So kind of going into the next phase of this, when about executing, right? So now you kind of talked about doing succession planning and not waiting, right? But now, you know, there might be listeners that might be either acquiring a business, you know, purchasing it outright, or inheriting one, or building their own, right? So how would you kind of like look at that in terms of, like, saying, growing that bag? Like, what advice would you give them?
Again, you know, I'm pretty sure most of you guys know this already, but it's the long game. Entrepreneurship, there's no get rich scheme. It just doesn't exist. You know what I mean? You may hit a lick and it may be quick, but it's like sustainability, how long you want to be here, right? And I think we have to extend ourselves grace, you know, in this walk. And I think that's something to really be mindful of, extending yourself grace and not being afraid to pivot if need be. Right. You know what I mean? And just continuing to be flexible. You know, I think beyond that, you know, everybody is not a religious person, but I'm very much a spiritual person. I couldn't do none of this shit if I wasn't connected to the higher power. Like, I don't know how people get through entrepreneurship and not be, you know what I mean? Because it's a beast. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think when you are executing, you know, it is good to surround yourself, you know, with like-minded people, because most people don't get this. Right. Don't understand. Right. And won't ever understand. And in some ways, it's not for them to understand. You know what I mean? Because that's not necessarily your tribe. So I think, you know, take deep breaths and, you know, accept that this is what you've been called to do. And there's a reason why you were chosen. Okay. And rise to that.
All right. So now the last piece is adapting. Mm-hmm. So, you know, things are never going to go as planned. Right. Right. When it comes to, you know, securing your legacy, building something, and stuff like that. What's something that you have gone through that you can say, hey, like, this is something to look out for?
Let's see. Something to look out for. I mean, coronavirus came through and mess up a whole lot of plans, right? You know, because I will say 2020 was like my official year, kind of coming back to my platform, my online community. And I had a lot of things planned, you know what I mean? And I was sulking about it back in March. But then after a while, I was just like, there's beauty in this. And like, where is there opportunity for me to impact people maybe in a different way? And I think, you know, if you've been in entrepreneurship for a while, then, you know, you got to adapt. Right. You know what I mean? And I think the beautiful thing is going through this as an entrepreneur, we earning our stripes. We all going to be, if you're able to make it through, you're going to be a totally different beast on the other side of this, which is going to prepare you to take your business or a new endeavor or pivot to the next level. Okay. So I would say always embrace change. Embrace the uncomfortable, because that's how you know you're growing. And that's how you know God love you too. Right.
All right. So that was Concept Startup Growth. Yo, you guys have some gems here for that. And I want to hear that, you know, that we didn't come back and get you some fire. All right. So the next part is hashtag Comfort Zone Killer, which is kind of like our wrap up, right? So this is kind of like that last piece that we kind of want to tell the listeners, the viewers, to kind of help them get through the next week, right? And something that they can remember that can kind of get them keep them going until the next episode. All right. So if there's anything out there that, you know, a quote, it could be a meme, it could be a song, like anything that you just kind of find that motivation in, anything you want to share.
So this would be, you know, when I'm talking to entrepreneurs or just people in general, I would say something that my dad drilled into me. Don't ever get comfortable signing the back of checks you want to sign the front.
I think you gotta say that one more time for everybody.
We gonna roll that back one more time.
One more time.
Don't ever get comfortable signing the back of checks you want to sign the front. And so what that means, you know, that ownership and equity, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that you won't ever work for somebody in your lifetime, right? Because you got to start somewhere. You got to get some experience, but you can't get comfortable with that. And it doesn't mean that you will totally be 100% entrepreneur either.
Right.
But you need to have something within your portfolio that you own and you have equity in. And that is what that means. You sign in front of your checks because you hustling for your last name in a different type of way.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, and you hear this stuff all the time where, you know, you hear like people like athletes or, you know, entertainers, and they'll say, you know, this person is making blank a year. But you got to think about it. Like, who's the person who had the money to get them that in the first place? Who signed them checks?
Exactly. Right. And, you know, it's a powerful thing. And I tell people who are out here, who are entrepreneurs, who, you know, have young kids, to grow up and to be able to see my father sign in front of checks my whole life. Like, that's a powerful thing.
Right.
I remember going through the storage and me and my brother found his letter when he got a raise. It's like to see a letter from a father to a son giving you a raise and a salary that people still don't even make today.
Right.
This was back in 2003.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's a powerful thing to be able to do. That doesn't mean we can go through hella sacrifice to get there. Because, right. you know, when you build a business, CEO get paid last.
Right. Yeah.
There were many times where we was getting paid last. You know what I mean? But you understand what you're doing for the greater good. And so, you know, don't underestimate the power of what it is that you're building, even if it doesn't look like, you know, things are bearing fruit right now.
Got it. Yeah, that's fire. All right. And so for me, my comfort zone killer comes from the great man, Marcus Peters. He's you know, an all-star, you know, cornerback for the NFL. And it's simply as, I think we ain't done yet.
Okay, now.
All right. So I want to thank you, Lauren, for taking the time out to come here, a little old Winston-Salem, right, to kind of bless us here today with, you know, with these gems and about really kind of how to secure this bag and while growing our own. So can you let everybody know, like, where they can learn more about you and where they can follow you and find out everything about Lauren Miller?
Sure. So my website is www.laurenrosamiller.com. On Instagram, you can follow me at lauren.rosa.miller. If you're interested in my family business, it's Miller 3 Consulting. That website is miller3group.com. And you can just Google me, really. You know, it's gone. You can Google Can't Stay Put, you know.
She got a couple of articles out there.
It ain't a couple, it's more than a couple.
A couple of placements.
Yeah, it's more than a couple. Couple means two. It's way more than two.
So I really want to thank you for your time. It's so dope. But all right, listeners, before you go, if you don't know, like, we're back, right? And I'm hoping that you guys see the energy that we're trying to get out there. We're trying to put out there. But in the meantime, in between time, you can get more about my journey by following me at EA the Exec on all platforms, or you can learn more about the agency at openmedia.agency on Instagram and on Facebook and on everywhere else. But now I want you guys to go get your journey started and build your idea, project, or business. But just remember, all you have to do is open up shop. Peace.